Hi everyone, and welcome to another Christmas tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to paint a Christmas style wreath. Don't worry, it's going to slow down in a while. I just wanted to show you a quick overview of the general process that we will be using to paint this wreath. So the first 40 seconds are sped up about 30 times, but we'll go through the much slower process in a moment. So you want to start off by sketching out a very light circle using a pencil. So you can take the lid of any object or anything circular really and just paint on a very light circle because we want our wreath to be circular, so you can follow the general shape of your sketch once you have sketched it out, and this will ensure that it's a nice circular shape. So the first thing we're going to do is create one of the two bunches of holly. So we're going to create sort of two bunches of holly, one on either side of the wreath, and these are sort of going to be our centerpieces. So you can take some green watercolor paint and just paint on 3 holly leaves that face one another or sort of meet in the center, and you can even paint on some pine branches coming out. You just want this to look very organic, so just fill in white space where you think is necessary. I even painted on a second bunch of holly here that we will later be filling with red berries that sort of go in the center. So again, just paint on what feels right and what kind of fills in the white space in the appropriate places. Now we're sort of painting in the transition out of the holly, so we are going to have 2 transition pieces, I guess, before we meet the second group of holly on the opposite side of the wreath. So I just took some brown watercolor and painted a long curved line following the angle of the circle roughly, and then I took green watercolor and created all of the needles because I just painted sort of a single pine tree branch that was transitioning out of the holly. And then we're going to do something similar on the opposite side in a moment, but again I was just filling in some of the white space with some more little pine needles and branches, just to give the painting a little bit more texture because those holly leaves are quite flat and solid, whereas the pine tree branches, they offer a little bit more variation. But you're going to take your brown watercolor again, and this time we're going to just paint on a branch, just a regular tree branch. So to make this look more realistic, you want to paint on the lines in sort of very jagged positions, and I've linked to the brush that I use and all of the supplies that I use in the description if you want to achieve those really thin tree branch lines. And once that has all dried, you can start painting on the berries that go in the middle of the holly and just anywhere where there's an excessive amount of white space. You want the entire wreath to sort of blend into each component, so just make sure that there isn't a lot of white space in one area over the other. I also added a tiny bit of greenery to random places on that tree branch that I painted, and then added some more red berries onto the ends of the little curved branches. And here we've transitioned to the opposite side where we are painting our holly again. So this is kind of the second centerpiece of the wreath. So you're just replicating the same process that you used to paint on the first bunch. So 3 leaves that all sort of join in the middle, and you can paint 2 bunches, making sure to paint the second bunch in a way that it, fills up that white space nicely and doesn't look too like forced. So just keep that in mind when you're painting your holly. Also, the more variations of green that you use, the better. Obviously, not all, plants are the same color of green, so if you use some greens that are a little bit more on the blue side, a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, it adds variation to your wreath and makes it look a lot nicer as well. Finally, there was just a little portion there of white space and I didn't want to add more holly, so instead I added a tiny little tree branch opposite the other one that we painted, replicating that same process, so making the branches as edgy and curvy as possible, adding a little bit of green, and then finally adding a few red berries onto the ends of the branches, as well as in between the holly leaves that we painted. When you're happy with your wreath, you can pencil in any holiday greeting that you choose and then go over it with either a black fine tip marker or black pen. I chose to write "Joy to the World," but you can write whatever holiday greeting that you choose. Anyways, that's it for today's tutorial. I hope you enjoyed painting this wreath with me. Don't forget to check out my other Christmas tutorials, subscribe, like this video, and I will see you in next week's episode.